Hey, welcome back. Let's take a quick look at Chapter 16. Do a quick review now. Up to this point, we have talked about some of the tools and some of the tricks that go into designing a window. Chapter 16, I'm over here on page 265, talks about setting the consumer theater. And that's what this is all about. Go with me over to page 266 real quick. There's a couple things we want to talk about right there. At the bottom of the first paragraph it says, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a compelling window is worth 1,000 advertisements. And that's what we're looking for, right? We want to turn that shopper into a buyer. We want that consumer or that shopper to stop in his or her tracks and look at our window and get that person into the store. Just a little bit down from that paragraph talks about windows possess a threefold mission. They must 1. Entertain, must 2. Educate, and 3. Entice. Now think about that for the displays that you've done over the last 3 months. Did they do those 3 things? Is that what you, when you're putting your window or your display together, is that what you're thinking about? Then over on page 267, and it seems so simple, seems almost like a common sense item to me. Talks about housekeeping. Make sure your windows are clean. Make sure your electrical is taken care of. It says start with the very basics, and it says the very, very basics. Housekeeping. Not just part of the window, but the entire pane inside and out. The ceiling cleared of any remnants of past displays, etc., etc. And then, one of the best lines in the entire text. The paragraph right under that, I'm still on 267. It's right in the middle of the paragraph. It says, you must learn to see your business as the customer sees it. And that could be a problem with us. We're going to design a window that we think, that we created, is a great window. But just because we think it's a great window, does that mean that's what our customers are going to see? So, sometimes it's just better to do your design, do your window, do your display, go away for a little while, and then come around to the front side of that window. Just look at it as if you're the consumer and you only had so much money in your pocket. Would that window that you just created get you to come inside and spend that money? I think that's a great line. You must learn to see your business as your customer sees you. It's a great quote. That's on page 267. Now, again, and if I could get closer to this camera I would, but then you'd see every little pore and blemish in my face, so I'm not going to get any closer. But on the bottom of page 267, we talk about window display dilemmas. Look at the 3 things. I don't have enough room. I don't have enough merchandise. I don't have any way to show it. Then there's a 4th one. I don't have enough money. These dilemmas are going to hit just about every visual merchandiser out there. At least one of them will. And how do you overcome these hurdles? Over on page 268, we talk about the first hurdle, the space considerations. Always keep in mind that you can overfill a display. You can put too much stuff in there that the item that you're trying to focus on is actually lost with everything else. Talks about another respect, the overflow window makes it too difficult to find the focus, to shift through the signings to determine what is being sold and why. You can actually have too much in your window or your display, whatever you want to call it. When you begin to feel squeezed for space, take a deep breath and edit. Just take your time and say, do I really need this piece of merchandise in there? Is it distracting from what I'm actually trying to sell? Keep in mind, and this is in, I don't know, 3rd or 4th paragraph down there, it talks about, if one creates a color story and dresses a mannequin in all red, the guest will not assume that only red dresses are available for sale. So you can have a red color theme, but don't think the customer is going to assume that you only have that particular dress in red. So it's okay to have that red dress as a color theme. So that's fine too. The simplest way to begin is to, as suggested, to create a color story. We talked about that several chapters ago. And then we talk on 268 and 269 about merchandise insufficiency. Another hurdle we've got to come around. The prevailing rule of thumb states that the customer will spend 20 seconds sizing up a display and making a decision to act. Walk on or walk in. The visual merchandiser must be proactive in creating a vignette of setting that can be easily read for message and merchandise. Can you have too little merchandise? Of course you can. Just like hurdle 1, you can have too much. You can also have too little. But you can fix this. You can cut down your viewing space. And if you'll look with me on page, I'm going to jump a page here real quick. Look over on page 270, figure 16-6. Look what they did with just that drape. They cut the viewing space down by a third maybe. So that's a real quick way to do it. If you don't have enough merchandise, cut the viewing space down. Alright, now back on page 269. Another hurdle we've got is efficiency showing the merchandise. When tackling issues that involve a lack of display vehicles, things that can become a bit trickier after all this, excuse me, this involves a bit of creativity. Words to live by for the small business owner. If in doubt, hire it out. It is not realistic to assume that the same individual who is running the business, covering payroll, and handling the buying can also undertake the artistic end of the job. If you're the small business owner, you've got all the other things to worry about. Your displays may not be your strength. You might have to hire it out. And that'll be okay. That's where we come in, right? Typically, when displaying fashion, what are we going to use? Typically, we're going to use the mannequin. Inexpensive, probably already have some, and it catches people's attention. And then, if you go with me, and those people have shared a classroom with me before knows this is probably my biggest hurdle right here. Page 271. Budgetary restraints. Do we have enough money to do the window? Can you get enough money to do the window? And I love what it says, the second line down. It says, no money, no problem. You're creative enough to come up with it. You're going to borrow what you have to. You're going to use what you used last year, a little bit of it hopefully. So don't throw it out. Keep it. And then over on page 272, I like this statement he makes because it ties visual merchandising to another industry other than retail. Listen to what he says on page 272. Many theatrical set designers find themselves exploring visual merchandising, especially window displays, as a career alternative. Take that the other way. A visual merchandiser doesn't have to be in retail. It can be at the movie industry. It can be at a photography thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be at a retail level. So there are alternatives for you. But I like that line only because it shows that there are alternatives out there for us. Over on page 273, we start talking about legitimate theater and consumer theater. It requires sets that show either the actors or the merchandise to the best advantage. Now look at the three bullets they talk about. Cleaning the space. Again, it goes back to housekeeping that we talked on page 267 about. Keep your display windows clean. That means inside and outside the pane, you wipe them down, you clear out the ceiling, you vacuum, whatever it takes, you keep your windows clean. Consistency. And this has a meaning that, for example, you go into a sporting goods store. You don't want to see a display about flowers or female Paris fashions. Keep your displays consistent with what the store is selling. You with me on that? And then number 3, this is all up to you guys. Number 3 is all up to you, the creativity side. You've got to be creative. Alright, then we look at page 273. I'm going to move back a little bit just so you don't see everything about one. We talk about the different panes of visual merchandising. What we're talking about is the different depths. You got the forefront, you've got the middle ground, you've got the background. The forefront also called the proscenium. Everybody just calls it forefront. Think about which one in the forefront, then look at the middle ground. The middle ground is the meat of your display. This is where the thing that you're actually going to try to sell or entice them is at. Not in the forefront, not in the background. The meat of it is in the middle ground. We talk about the background, less likely to be used as the prime spot for merchandise, unless the space is extremely shallow. Again, the meat and potatoes goes into the, I forgot, the meat and the potatoes of the display goes where? Oh, that's right, goes into the middle ground. I forgot for a second. Guys, this is a good chapter to start thinking about a career in this. It assumes that you already got the tools and the tricks that we've talked about for the first 3 months. Now we're actually talking about putting it together and what's it say over there on page 266? Entertain, educate, or entice the consumer. Alright guys, well that is chapter 16, and I hope that helps.